Hey guys, thanks for watching my presentation of my case study. The first question I'd like you to consider is it ethical to grant an employee paid vacation days and then retract them one business day before the vacation time were set to occur? Ethical considerations have an immense impact on how we make our decisions. According to philosopher Carl Wellman, an ethical theory does not tell a person what to do in any given situation, but neither is it completely silent. It tells one what to consider in making up one's mind what to do. In the business world, organizational leaders need to recognize and understand their values so they are capable of making strong, ethical decisions that sustain those values. Administrators face daily ethical decisions every day due to the structure of their working environment of an organization. Typically, when ethical dilemmas arise in the workplace, there aren't always clear cut or easy ways to overcome them. Oftentimes, the situation itself is just as complex or more complex than the options that arise from them. According to Richard Johannesson, ethical issues may arise in human behavior whenever that behavior could have significant impact on other persons, when the behavior involves conscious choice of means and ends, and when the behavior can be judged by standards of right and wrong. The following case study is meant to serve as an example of a communicative predicament that arose in a professional work setting and the various choices in relation to ethical theories that were available to the actor. I will explore the positive and negative ramifications of each option, reveal which choice was actually made, and present the responses that followed. Finally, I will explain whether or not I think the actor made the best choice in this situation. The ethical dilemma took place on March 3rd, 2014, at a family's private home where a child care specialist is employed. Nannies and their employer have a unique relationship that is reliant on communication, trust, fairness, respect, and care. Nannies are traditionally treated as a member of the family as well as an employee, which can often blur the lines between professional and personal conduct. In this particular relationship, the employer and employee took the precautionary measure of creating a comprehensive employment contract that outlined the expectations of both parties before the job began. Some of these details that were spelled out in advance included compensation, vacation time, overtime, sick days, payment schedule, and grounds for dismissal. In addition to the employee's paid time off, it was also noted that when the parents chose to take the day off and spend time with the children or go on a vacation as a family, that the nanny would have the paid time off as well. On the morning of March 3rd, the employer, who we'll call the actor, notified the nanny that they would be taking a family vacation that upcoming weekend. They would not be returning until the evening of March 11th, so their nanny would not be needed March 10th and 11th. Then, 5 business days later, on the evening of March 7th, the actor notified the nanny that the vacation they were planning to take had fallen through. The actor's manager did not approve her requested time off due to the busy workload of their company, and therefore they needed the nanny to be present on her scheduled hours. The immediate ethical concern for the employee was that the situation appeared to go against the agreed upon contract concerning time off in relation to pre-planned family vacations. In addition, issues of moral concern such as trust, fairness, and respect were compromised. Though the actor may not have intended to mislead her employee into thinking that she had additional paid time off when that was not the case, the employee felt deceived. After evaluating the scenario, the employee determined that the actor's error in communication, whether it be intentional or unintentional, was unethical in terms of respect for another person's time. Given that the actor had granted the time off and then retracted it before the vacation time was to occur, the employee was left in a predicament with various commitments, such as a doctor's appointment and an out-of-town family engagement that were now going to be conflicted by work constraints. The employee voiced these ethical concerns to the actor and was told that she would get back to her with a response as soon as possible. From a basic standpoint, the actor has two choices. She can tell her employee that she's going to honor her word by granting her employee these 2 additional vacation days, or she can tell her employee that she expects her to work regularly scheduled hours on those 2 days since the family vacation has been canceled and they are in need of childcare. There are many different ethical theories that can be used to describe these 2 different choices. However, this case will focus on 2 specific approaches: ethics of care and utilitarianism. Ethics of care puts human relationships on the forefront of values. Carol Gilligan, an American ethicist who is seen as one of the leading founders of ethics of care, demonstrated that female moral development centered on care as opposed to rules. She concludes that women use a different language and a different basis for making decisions. Since the actor in this situation is a woman, it's logical to assume that she would base her decision on the element of care. When valuing the element of care, the actor would realize that her miscommunication or quickness to relieve somebody from their work duties before the possibility of it was confirmed potentially jeopardizes the relationship on both a personal and a professional level. According to Carol, it would be hard for the actor to ignore the feelings that pertain to sensitivity and responsibility of caring for another. With the belief that the nanny is not just an employee, but a member of the actor's family, the relationship between the 2 parties would be recognized as a valued affiliation, and thus the inherent ability and moral obligation to care for the employee would come into play, and she would be granted her additional time off work that was given to her earlier in the week. The second option for the actor would be to respond to the employee by telling her that she is needed at work on March 10th and 11th to care for the children. Being that one party includes the parent and 2 children, and the other party includes one person, the consequence of the nanny not showing up for work would affect 3 people, whereas disrupting the nanny's plans by having her show up for work would only affect one person. This option of action reflects the theory of utilitarianism, which bases moral worth exclusively on the consequences rather than the intentions of an action. The strongest proponent of utilitarianism is that there is a rational rule for defining right and wrong, rather than the reliance on people's instinctive sense of justice. To explain, the ethical approach poses the greatest happiness principle, which argues that the good action is dependent upon the happiness that results from it, according to the greatest number of people, assuming that each person's happiness is valued equally. Thus, utilitarianism assumes that all things are done for pleasure, or as a means to stimulate pleasure. Though we may not always be able to control the consequences of our actions, it is possible to speculate the positive and negative ramifications of our choices. If the actor decides to grant her employee the 2 days paid time off, as originally planned, she sends the message that she values and respects the employee's time. Taking this route of action likely instills the value of good communication in the reciprocated relationship between the employer and the employee. A possible disadvantage to this option is that it puts the actor in a predicament resulting in the lack of childcare for 2 days. Since it is already known that the actor's requested time off wasn't approved by her boss, she would need to figure out an alternative option for childcare. If the actor decides to request that the nanny be present for her normally scheduled hours, she sends the message that she doesn't honor her word or value her communication. Taking this route of action could result in a few negative consequences, such as the chance that the employee won't show up for work, or if she does show up for work, she won't fully be present and attentive to the children's needs due to her other time commitments that were made when she was granted the time off. A few positive results of this action that could ensue are that the children are ensured the normal caretaker. The actor won't be left with an obligation to seek alternative options, and the nanny will realize her employed duty to cater to the family's needs and more specifically the needs of the children. The chosen course of action by the employer was to have the employee work on March 10th for her regularly scheduled hours, though she would be allowed to leave to attend her scheduled appointments. The mother-in-law would cover these duties while the nanny was away. The actor also granted the employee the full day off on March 11th so she could follow through with her family engagements that were being held out of town. The father of the children took the day off of work to spend time with his children, which was the original plan before the actor's requested time off fell through. In order to come to this conclusion, the actor emphasized the issue of moral judgment and the process of envisioning of different perspectives. Lawrence Kohlberg, who is best known for his stages of moral development, assessed morality and decision making on the worth of the reasoning behind a person's decision. In other words, when dealing with an ethical dilemma, in order to determine what is fair, the actor must understand the differing perspectives within the situation and use their imagination to see how each actor would feel if they were to switch places within it. The goal of this exercise is to come up with a solution that is viewed equally just by both parties, even if their roles were to be reversed, and fair by a high percentage of people. The described case study serves as an example of how effective communication can be utilized and values can be maintained even when ethical dilemmas arise. I believe that the decision the actor made was the best possible choice in this given situation. The actor recognized her fault in communication when she spoke too soon and misinformed her employee of her expectations. Her mistake occurred when she gave her nanny additional time off before her organizational leader approved her requested time off. When she took back her words, she disrupted the employee's private life schedule, which, when affected, can be a detriment to her working life as well. After hearing how the situation affected her employee and essentially caused an ethical dilemma within the workplace, she re-evaluated the morality of her previous actions and came to a more ethical, mutually inspired decision. Kohlberg says that the core of justice is the distribution of rights and duties regulated by concepts of equality and reciprocity. As said before, the relationship between a nanny and her employer is unique because the caretaker is seen as both an employee and a member of the family. And therefore, the lines between personal and professional lives are sometimes blurred. In order for a successful foundation to be established, it is essential that the relationship be based on mutual respect for one another. As a communicator and an active participant in the relationship, the nanny first recognized that there was an ethical dilemma at hand by presenting her concerns to the actor. Once that dialogue was established, the actor stepped up and chose the appropriate course of action in order to correct the problem. Richard Johannesson said that communication can be viewed as a transaction where both senders and receivers bear mutual responsibility to participate actively in the process. Through the process of dialogic communication, the employer and the employee recognize their duties and responsibilities within their relationship. They discovered ways to please both parties.
Yay, this marks the end of my presentation of my case study. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to post a couple of questions to get us started on the discussion board, and then we'll go from there.